Organizational behavior, groups. Why groups? Work groups are essential. Some of the statistical evidences that establish the significance of teams are as follows. According to a Harvard Business Review article, teams make better decisions 87% of the time compared to individuals. A Deloitte research suggests collaborative teams are 5 times more likely to be high-performing in creativity and innovation. According to a Gallup research, companies that foster teamwork have a 50% lower employee turnover rate. A McKinsey research indicates employees save an average of 50 minutes daily due to efficient collaboration. A Gusto research suggests 37% of respondents claimed that working with a great team wasn't just a motivator for staying in a job but their primary reason for staying. Further, a Stranford research suggests that employees who are open to collaborative working are not only likely to focus on tasks for longer, 64% longer than their solo peers, to be exact, but are also more engaged, display less fatigue, and generally deliver more successful outcomes. A Fears Incorporation's research suggests that 86% of employees blame a lack of workplace collaboration or ineffective communication for workplace failures, while 97% believe a lack of alignment within a team impacts tasks or project outcomes. Social identity theory. As originally formulated by social psychologists Henry Tajfel and John Turner in the 1970s and the 1980s, social identity theory introduced the concept of a social identity as a way in which to explain intergroup behavior. Social identity refers to the ways that people's self-concepts are based on their membership in social groups. Examples include sports teams, religions, nationalities, occupations, sexual orientation, ethnic groups, and gender. Social identity theory addresses the ways that social identities affect people's attitudes and behaviors regarding their in-group and the out-group. Social identities are most influential when individuals consider membership in a particular group to be central to their self-concept and they feel strong emotional ties to the group. Schadenfreude. Schadenfreude is a common emotion that occurs in both interpersonal and group interactions. Individuals will not only gloat over the misfortunes of members of the outgroup, but also over the misfortunes of members of the in-group. Multiple identities. When it comes to our membership of different social groups, most of us switch between different versions of ourselves multiple times each day. Your different group memberships play a more profound role in your life than you might realize. They form a core part of who you are. Researchers refer to it as your social identity. There are many different types of social identities, including those that you actively chose, for example, being a member of a political party, ones that you were born into, for example, your ethnicity, ones that are more public and formal, for example, an occupational identity, and ones that are private and less formal, for example, a social identity you share with a friendship group. To give a few more examples, you might identify as a feminist, a millennial, or as a typical dog or cat owner. One strong driver of whichever social identity becomes most active is the environment you are in. For instance, being at your workplace as opposed to being in a sports stadium most likely activates very different social identities. But it doesn't take a completely new environment to trigger a switch to a different dominant social identity. For instance, seeing a message from a specific group pop up on your phone could be enough. These social identity switches can happen relatively seamlessly. In-group favoritism. In-group bias, also known as in-group favoritism, is the tendency for people to give preferential treatment to others who belong to the same group that they do. This bias shows up even when people are put into groups randomly, making group membership effectively meaningless. Let's say you are a cricket fan, and you root for Royal Challengers Bangalore. At work, you have a couple of co-workers who are also into cricket, Meera, who is also a RCB fan, and Abhi, who supports Chennai Super Kings. You are much closer with Meera than you are with Abhi, even though you and Abhi actually have more in common, beyond sports preferences, than you do with Meera. Your work friendships are an example of the in-group bias at work. Similarities. Groups are formed by like-minded people. These are groups of people who have come together because they share common ideas, common interests, or other similarities, like a geoethnic background. Formal group is formed based on job specialization and similarity of skill sets to reap the advantages of division of labor. Workplace might have a group of people who get together during the lunch hour to knit and help each other with yarn projects, or a group that is drawn together by cultural similarities and wants to introduce the rest of the organization to their traditions. Distinctiveness. Human beings are characterized by two basic, opposing needs: a need for inclusion, a desire to belong that motivates our immersion in social groups, and a need for differentiation from others. An optimally distinctive identity is one that satisfies the need for inclusion within an in-group, feeling similar and belonging with a group, as well as the need for distinctiveness between that in-group and various outgroups, so as to distinguish one's group from others. These needs have their origin in our evolutionary past, where security and survival depended on inclusion in stable, clearly differentiated social groups. As a consequence, our sense of personal security is maximized in a context of in-group membership with clear in-group-out-group distinctions. Status groups. The German sociologist Max Weber formulated a three-component theory of stratification that defines a status group, also status class and status estate, as a group of people within a society who can be differentiated by non-economic qualities such as honor, prestige, ethnicity, race, and religion. The German terms are Stand, status group, and Stande, status groups. Status groups feature in the varieties of social stratification addressed in popular literature and in the academic literature, such as categorization of people by race, ethnic group, racial caste, professional groups, community groups, nationalities, etc. These contrast with relationships rooted in economic relations, which Weber calls class. Uncertainty. Group identification reduces uncertainty because it causes people to internalize a shared identity and associated group prototype, which defines and prescribes who one is and how one should behave, and describes how one will be perceived and treated by others. However, some groups and identities are better equipped to reduce self-uncertainty, specifically, distinctive groups with clearly defined and prescriptive identities that are relatively unambiguous and consensual. In more extreme circumstances and manifestations, self-uncertainty can motivate a strong preference for and zealous identification with extremist groups, groups that have identities that echo populist ideology and behavior, and associated conspiracy theories and narratives of victimhood, and have strong and directive leaders who can be populist, autocratic, and toxic. Stages of group development. Psychologist Bruce Tuckman came up with the memorable phrase, forming, storming, norming, and performing in his 1965 paper, Developmental Sequence in Small Groups. It describes the path that teams follow on their way to high performance. Later, he added a fifth stage, adjourning, also known as mourning, to mark the end of a team's journey. What happens at Tuckman's forming stage? In the beginning, when a new team forms, individuals will be unsure of the team's purpose, how they fit in, and whether they'll work well with one another. They may be anxious, curious, or excited to get going. However they feel, they'll be looking to the team leader for direction. This may take some time, as people get to know their new colleagues and one another's ways of working. What did Tuckman mean by storming? In the storming stage, people start to push against the established boundaries. Conflict or friction can also arise between team members as their true characters and their preferred ways of working surface and clash with other people's. At this stage, team members may challenge your authority or management style, or even the team's mission. Left unchecked, this can lead to face-to-face confrontations or simmering online tensions. How do I recognize the norming stage? Gradually, the team moves into the norming stage. People start to resolve their differences, appreciate one another's strengths, and respect your authority as a leader. Now that they know one another better, your team members will feel more comfortable asking for help and offering constructive feedback. They'll share a stronger commitment to the team's goals, and they should make good progress toward it. What does the performing stage look like? Once the team is in flow and performing to its full potential. With hard work and structured processes, the team is likely to achieve its goals efficiently. Judith Stein, from MIT's HR department, says of this stage, roles on the team may have become more fluid, with members taking on various roles and responsibilities as needed. Differences among members are appreciated and used to enhance the team's performance. What about Tuckman's adjourning or mourning stage? Many teams reach this stage naturally. For example, projects come to an end, or permanent teams are disbanded and people redeployed. People who like routine, or who have developed close working relationships with colleagues, may find this time difficult. Punctuated equilibrium model. The punctuated equilibrium model of group development argues that groups often move forward during bursts of change after long periods without change. The punctuated equilibrium model, PEM, is a theoretical framework developed by Stephen R. Barley and Gideon Kunda in 1992. The punctuated equilibrium model suggests that temporary groups go through different stages, with important events shaping how they work. Unlike other models that see things as a smooth, ongoing process, the PEM recognizes that things can suddenly change and groups need to adapt. While the PEM gives us useful insights, it's essential to explore other models that can work well in different situations and add to what we already know. So, this is an alternative model that combines the strengths of traditional structures, like organization charts, with the flexible and adaptable ideas from the punctuated equilibrium model. It offers insights into the evolution of groups, organizations, or projects over time. The model posits that the life cycle of such entities is marked by stable periods punctuated by brief but intense phases of change. Some of the key components of the punctuated equilibrium model are: patterns of inertia. Equilibrium phases are marked by patterns of inertia, where the group tends to resist change and adhere to existing structures and processes. Punctuation points disrupt these patterns, breaking the inertia and creating a window of opportunity for adaptation and innovation. Punctuation points, critical events, referred to as punctuation points, serve as triggers for change. These events are often unforeseen and disruptive and challenge the existing norms and routines of the group. Punctuation points create a sense of urgency. Triggering events. Triggering events are typically occurred by external or internal factors that disturb the equilibrium. Examples of triggering events include changes in leadership, technological advancements. Equilibrium phases. The model begins with an equilibrium phase where the group operates stably and predictably. During this period, there is a sense of continuity in the group's structure, processes, and goals. Transition phases. Following a punctuation point, the group enters a transition phase characterized by heightened activity and adaptation. During this phase, members of the group engage in intense communication, re-evaluate their roles, and make strategic decisions. Adaptation and change. During the transition phase, the group undergoes significant adaptation and change. Members collaborate to devise new strategies, alter processes, and realign goals. New equilibrium. The transition phase leads to the establishment of a new equilibrium. In this phase, the group stabilizes around the changes implemented in response to the critical event. Applicability. The PEM is commonly applied in organizational studies to understand how groups respond to external shocks or internal challenges. It emphasizes the dynamic nature of organizational development, highlighting that periods of stability are interspersed with critical events that propel the group through phases of change and adaptation. Groups and cohesiveness. Group cohesiveness. Team cohesiveness, also known as social cohesion, is a degree of unity of any group. Team cohesiveness is a degree to which group members are attracted or motivated by each other. Basically, group cohesiveness is the closeness amongst the group members. It is seen that members of a highly cohesive group develop some common characteristics. Everyone respects each other. They are fully committed to the decision made by the group. There is good accountability amongst members. Features of group cohesion. Here are some of the features of group cohesiveness. The cohesive group have fewer members. Members of the cohesive teams are of similar interests or backgrounds. It has a high degree of status within organizations. Members are accessible to each other to maintain easy communication. Each cohesive team is physically remote from other groups in the organization. Cooperative behavior is rewarded regularly. Cohesive groups have a history of past success. Factors that affect group cohesiveness are similarities of attitudes and values. One of the major factors affecting team cohesion is the similarity in attitudes and values among group members. It is basic human nature people enjoy and get attached to the people who have similar opinions, morals, beliefs, and code of conduct, as people with the same opinions provide the same kind of social validation. Size of the group. It is assumed that cohesiveness will decrease as the size of the group increases. When the size of the group increases, the interaction with the members becomes more difficult, and hence the goal is hampered. Time. When people spend time with each other, the more they will get close, and hence it strengthens the degree of cohesiveness. Interdependency. When each member has autonomous action, the cohesiveness between the members of such a group would be less, as opposed to the group whose members are doing the procedure and are relying upon each other. Management behavior. If we talk about factors affecting group cohesiveness, then management behavior plays a major role in it. When a manager makes a close relationship with a few in groups, that may cause unhealthy competition amongst members of the group. Importance of group cohesiveness. When we talk about any organization, it is important that there is team cohesion to achieve the goal. Here are the importance of group cohesiveness. Performance. If there is great bonding amongst the group, then the performance of the group will become better. Satisfaction. When there is group cohesion, the performance will increase, and hence it will bring satisfaction to the employees. Assurance pressure. When there is a great bonding between the group, then it is assured that surely the task will be completed. Emotional factors. When people work together and have strong bonding, people feel emotionally attached, and hence people will work with each other in harmony and achieve the goal together. Group properties. Roles. Roles are a vital element of group dynamics in commerce. They define the functions, responsibilities, and expectations associated with each member of the group. Roles can be extensively categorized into task roles and social roles. Task roles are concerned with reaching goals and include features like leadership, decision-making, and problem-solving. Social roles, however, focus on maintaining group cohesion and facilitating interpersonal relationships. Clear role definition is important for group efficiency. Role perception. Role perception refers to how individuals define their work role, such as how broadly they perceive it, what types of tasks, goals, and problems they see as relevant. Role expectations. The traits, attitudes, and behaviors considered appropriate for an occupant of a particular position within a group or social setting. These expectations may be communicated to the occupant by other people in the occupant's role set. Psychological contract. The psychological contract refers to the unwritten, intangible agreement between an employee and their employer that describes the informal commitments, expectations, and understandings that make up their relationship. Role conflict occurs due to incongruence between role perception and role expectations. Zimbardo's Stranford prison experiment. During the summer break at Stanford University, Zimbardo built a mock prison in the hallways of the psychology department. After having randomly assigned the role of either prisoner or guard to the subjects, he had the prisoners arrested by the actual local Palo Alto police without warning. They were blindfolded and brought to a real police station to have their fingerprints and picture taken, then charged with assault and brought to the mock prison. Here the guards made the prisoners get to put on shackles and robes, then confined them in the mock cells that had no amenities except for a mattress. They stayed in the prison day and night, whereas guards worked in shifts and could return home when they were not on duty. The guards were told not to harm the prisoners or withhold food or drink from them. However, throughout the study, violence started to escalate. Day 1, uneventful. Day 2, the prisoners barricaded themselves in a room with their mattresses. A cycle of retaliation between the two groups began. One prisoner had a nervous breakdown. Days 3 to 5, the guards found increasingly extreme methods to establish control over the prisoners by locking those who didn't comply in a cupboard, waking prisoners up in the middle of the night for head counts, stripping prisoners naked and using a fire extinguisher on them, verbally assaulting and humiliating them, making prisoners defecate in a bucket and not allowing them to empty it, withholding mattresses. Day 6, the study was cut short by Zimbardo. Observations. This experiment is considered to be an example of conformity to social roles because there was a difference between the participants' behavior while they were in the prison context and outside of it. During the study, the more extreme guards encouraged the peaceful ones to use more force. They admitted to acting in ways that they afterwards said were different from their normal behavior outside of the study. Subsequently, the prisoners became more depressed and submissive over time, to the point where they reported thinking they deserved to be in prison, even though they had done nothing wrong. Zimbardo's experiment is an example of normative social influence and situational influence. All of the participants started as part of the same group but, when randomly assigned new social roles, started to identify and behave without explicit prompting. Group properties norms. Group norms are the spoken or unspoken rules that guide how team members interact, collaborate effectively, and work efficiently. Usually, group norms aren't written down. Instead, they're implicitly agreed upon rules and standards of behavior, guided by the surrounding company culture ground rules. You likely already have a few group norms in place, things like the communication or project management tools your group uses, how your group resolves conflicts or addresses setbacks, the way group members typically interact, whether that's formally or informally, how acceptable it is for group members to be late to meetings. Group norms give team members a sense of normalcy and stability in their day-to-day. Create implicit or defined, shared value systems, which help team members achieve their best work. Facilitate collaboration more effectively and make a bigger impact. Allows members to know what is expected of them. Simplify meeting practices and communication preferences by clearly defining how team members should interact. Create a sense of belonging among team members by empowering them to take part in decision-making. Increase trust. Boost teamwork by replacing uncertainty with predictability. Establish team-wide policies. Reduce perceived social loafing. Hawthorne research, socioeconomic experiments conducted by Elton Mayo in 1927 among employees of the Hawthorne Works factory of the Western Electric Company in Cicero, Illinois. For almost a year, a group of female workers were subjected to measured changes in their hours, wages, rest periods, lighting conditions, organization, and degree of supervision. Workgroup norms affect productivity. The Hawthorne researchers were not the first to recognize that work groups tend to arrive at norms for what is a fair day's work, restricting their production below that point even when they are physically able to exceed the norm and would be financially rewarded for it. However, the Hawthorne study provided the best systematic description and interpretation of this phenomenon. The research concluded that the workplace is a social system. The Hawthorne researchers came to view the workplace as a social system made up of interdependent parts. Norms play an important role in shaping the behavior of groups. Deviant workplace behavior. Deviant workplace behavior. Workplace deviance can be thought of as any behavior from an employee that intentionally violates the rules or norms of an organization and results in a negative outcome for the organization or its employees. The three types of workplace deviance are unproductive behavior, abuse of property, and aggressive behavior. Each of these types of workplace deviance can result in negative consequences for an organization, its employees, or both. Group properties status. Status refers to the relative function or importance of an individual inside a group in commerce. It is often determined by means of elements like power, experience, expertise, and the contributions made by members. In a group setting, members may also maintain exceptional levels of status that may affect their influence, decision-making power, and overall status inside the organization. Those with better status regularly seem to for leadership and decision-making, even as lower status individuals might also have less influence on group choices. Status stigmatization. Individuals who are stigmatized usually feel different and devalued by others. Stigma may also be described as a label that associates a person to a set of unwanted characteristics that form a stereotype. Stigmatization is the process whereby a mark or attribute culturally understood as devalued and discrediting is recognized in or applied to an individual or group of individuals by another more powerful group of individuals. When someone treats you in a negative way because of your mental illness, this is discrimination. Stigma happens when a person defines someone by their illness rather than who they are as an individual. For example, they might be labeled psychotic, a disorder, rather than a person experiencing psychosis, a condition. Group property size. Size, the number of people involved, is an important characteristic of the groups, organizations, and communities in which social behavior occurs. When only a few persons are interacting, adding just one more individual may make a big difference in how they relate. As an organization or community grows in size, it is likely to experience tipping points where the way in which it operates needs to change. The complexity of large groupings is partly because they are made up of interrelated subgroups. Herbert Thelen proposed a principle that for members of groups to have maximum motivation to perform, the number of members in each should be the smallest, in which it is possible to have represented at a functional level all the social and achievement skills required for the particular required activity. Ringlemann Effect. The Ringlemann Effect, also known as social loafing, refers to the phenomenon where individual effort decreases as the size of a group increases. In other words, as more people are added to a group, each individual's contribution to the group's task or goal tends to diminish. Group properties cohesiveness. Group cohesiveness, also known as social cohesion, is a degree of unity of any group. Team cohesiveness is a degree to which group members are attracted or motivated by each other. Group cohesiveness is the closeness amongst the group members. It is seen that members of a highly cohesive group develop some common characteristics. Everyone respects each other. They are fully committed to the decision made by the group. There is good accountability amongst members. With higher cohesiveness and higher norms, a higher productivity is expected. Cohesive group characteristics. The cohesive group have fewer members. Members of the cohesive teams are of similar interests or backgrounds. It has a high degree of status within organizations. Members are accessible to each other to maintain easy communication. Each cohesive team is physically remote from other groups in the organization. Cooperative behavior is rewarded regularly. Cohesive groups have a history of past success. Group properties diversity. Diversity within a group refers to the presence of individuals with distinctive backgrounds, skills, and perspectives. Diversity can include a wide range of characteristics, including age, gender, race, ethnicity, and work experience. Diversity will have both advantages and challenges. Diverse groups can bring a wealth of thoughts and progressive answers to the table, which can be particularly useful for problem solving and decision making. They also can cater to a broader range of customers' needs and alternatives. For example, a diverse advertising team can be greater attuned to the nuances of a multicultural marketplace. However, managing diversity within a group can be complex. Group diversity carries the risk of creating subgroups called fault lines, the hypothetical dividing lines that split a group into two or more subgroups. Group decision making. Group decision making is a situation faced when individuals collectively make a choice from the alternatives before them. The decision is then no longer attributable to any single individual who is a member of the group. This is because all the individuals and social group processes, such as social influence, contribute to the outcome. The decisions made by groups are often different from those made by individuals. In workplace settings, collaborative decision-making is one of the most successful models to generate buy-in from other stakeholders, build consensus, and encourage creativity. According to the idea of synergy, decisions made collectively also tend to be more effective than decisions made by a single individual. Certain collaborative arrangements have the potential to generate better net performance outcomes than individuals acting on their own. Pitfalls in group decision-making. Time-consuming. Higher resource investments. Groupthink, the tendency of group members to conform to and support a proposed group position. Perhaps an outspoken individual strongly favors a decision, and other group members allow themselves to be persuaded simply because of his forcefulness. Tendency to polarization, decisions move toward extremes that the individuals alone might not be comfortable supporting. The group setting can cause individuals to feed on the excitement or enthusiasm of one another and move toward those extreme positions. Lastly, to compound the situation, if a group does make a decision that is not optimal, who bears the responsibility? In one sense, the entire group is accountable, but this also means that no individual will be personally and directly accountable. Decision-making techniques. Brainstorming sessions, a group decision-making technique that embraces the spontaneous and collaborative generation of diverse ideas. Dialectical inquiry, a structured process that divides team members into two subgroups. Each subgroup then forms and explores a set of opposing viewpoints and contrasting arguments. A decision tree, an organized brainstorming board that offers a structured visual representation of potential alternatives and outcomes tied to a series of choices or actions. Playing devil's advocate, start by assigning one person or a group to become critics of each idea brought to the table. This can prevent groupthink, improve group dynamics, and highlight potentially risky or expensive decisions. Democratic decision-making, a voting system in which the majority rules. Nominal group technique harnesses the collective insights of individuals while maintaining a structured approach. In other words, it makes brainstorming a more standardized process led by ranking the ideas.